My name is Liz Faust. I'm the Director of Exhibitions and Curator here at Goucher College. Today's lecture is in connection with our current exhibition, Memnosune, Memory as a Voice from Nature, on view right now in the Silber Gallery.
Thank you so much for the introduction, dear Liz, and welcome Christoph Quarch to join us today for the lecture about homecoming on memory, muses, and the need to replant ourselves in nature. My name is Artemis Herber. I'm the founder of the Memosune Initiative. The Memosune Initiative is a transdisciplinary, research-based international artist group that has been established in 2020 during the first lockdowns caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Since then, the initiative meets frequently through online meetings that include workshops, in-depth conversations, presentations, and to produce new artworks assigned to each cycle's theme. So since then, we have continued with in-depth investigations through research and artistic explorations, and the initiative now enters the 5th year of its collaborative work across cultures and nations. The Memosune Initiative cycle of 2025 and 26 has concluded with a fantastic exhibition at the Silber Gallery of Goucher College. The title is Memosune, Memory as a Voice for Nature, Explorations into the Contemporary Art of Land Use Interpretation. And from our starting point with 9 artists related to the 9 muses, we now have entered a period where 20 artists participated and addressed specific sites and bodies connecting with the land and its natural habitats to inspire works that merge memory with place. This research and introspection generated a body of work ultimately exhibited now in the Silber Gallery of Goucher College until April 2nd. So please come and take a look at this fantastic show. And this show promotes environmental justice awareness, named for the Greek goddess Memosune, the concept of memory and the mother of the 9 muses. Memosune serves as an enduring reference point. Also inspired by Abby Warburg's Memosune Atlas, the institute is located in London. A project emphasizes comparative views and visual continuity in art history, particularly from Hellenic traditions. The Memosune Initiative explores how these Asian perspectives resonate in the present material culture. Memosune, embedded in the concept of nature's rights, delves into Greek mythology that still evokes a sense of spiritual presence to reconnect with the universe itself and with the aliveness of nature. In antiquity, cosmos was understood to be eternal, alive, intrinsically valuable, and significant. In contrast to our contemporary lifestyle and concept, nature is used as a commodity, resource for economic growth, and a playground of exploitation. The ancient and revived concept of Memosune collides with today's division between human and versus nature. With empirical science, the research field of land use interpretation taps into these realities of how the land is utilized and controlled through human intervention. In particular, the initiative spotlights for the 25-26 cycle the connection between memory and contemporary art of land use interpretation to examine human-induced tectonic shifts within reshaped landscapes. This cycle engaged 20 international artists and scholars, inviting them to redefine what land can represent in the material culture. And one of these scholars is our old friend Christoph Quarch. Welcome again. Dr. Christoph Quarch supports the Memosune Initiative since its foundation in 2020 and turned out to be our philosophical advisor throughout the years, especially in the context of antiquity and the ancient titan Memosune in Greek mythology. His most important source of inspiration is ancient Greek philosophy, above all Plato. Dr. Christoph Quarch is one of the world's most innovative Plato specialists and one of the best connoisseurs of the Greek spirit in the German-speaking world. He is a leading and inspirational German philosopher, best-selling author, speaker, and teaches at several universities. Christoph is the founder of the Academy 3, in which he proposes an update of ancient Greek philosophy, particularly Plato's philosophy, and his philosophical project revolves around the question of a successful living life. Plato founded the first academy in a garden near Athens in the 4th century BC. The second academy in the Renaissance Florence followed his example, and today, on the threshold of the digital age, Christoph proposes once again a research field for new thinking that recognizes the special challenges of our era and paves the way for future-proof ways of thinking and living. And I can't imagine a better guest today to introduce the concept of Mnemosyne in the contemporary landscape that embeds nature in a new way of thinking and aliveness. Christoph, you have the stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Artemis, for these very kind introductory remarks. And I feel very honored and privileged to be part of the Mnemosyne project again tonight. Unfortunately, dear audience, I can't see you. I can only see my own screens. But nevertheless, I hope that we will have the chance to enter into a profound and inspiring conversation in the end of my remarks and my considerations. So I felt very privileged that I was invited to share some of my major thoughts tonight. And what I actually want to do is to share some considerations concerning the very essence of art and what it really means that art has the capacity to mold and shape the land, and these under the aspect of home. So in these days, as you all know, there's a lot of discussion and conversation going on what a home really means. There's a lot of talk about patriotism and things like that. My proposal tonight is that we need a different concept of home. And I suppose this concept can be discovered mostly through the medium of art, and not only of art, but also of poetry. Because I always think when we want to consider or to reflect on the very essence of art, it makes perfect sense to listen to the voice of an artist and not merely to the voice of a philosopher. And therefore, what I actually want to do tonight is to share some thoughts concerning a poem written by a poet that I do very much appreciate indeed. The poet is Friedrich Hölderlin, whose 215th birthday we celebrated a couple of years ago. Hölderlin was one of the leading protagonists of German idealism in the end of the 18th century, and he wrote beautiful poetry, mostly poetry reflecting the topic of what poetry basically is and what kind of impact poetry can have on societies, on culture, and mostly on cultural processes of Renaissance, of revolution, what obviously was a very important topic in the years of the French Revolution around 1889, exactly. Okay, here we go. So, Hölderlin's poetry, however, is, I have to confess it, quite difficult. And even for German readers, it's not easy to understand it. So the bad news is it is a long poem that I would like to read to you, and it is also a difficult one. But the good news is that there's a brilliant translation to English by Michael Hamburger, who was a great poet himself. And I have to confess, when reading the translation of Hamburger, things are more legible and sometimes easier to understand than in the German original. Therefore, I feel pretty comfortable to have the chance to read the English translation by Michael Hamburger to you. This is what I would like to do in the first part of my talk. After that, we will focus a bit closer to some of the main ideas of that poem in order to come to solutions concerning our general questions. What is the very essence of art? What is the relationship between art and nature? And how can art contribute to make the world in which we are living a place that we can call home? So, as I told you, the poem is quite long, but I hope you will be patient and will enjoy my reading. It's not that many times that I recite a poem from Hölderlin in English, but hopefully you will accept my apologies in advance when one times or two times I will stumble. Here we go. Homecoming. Still in the Alps, it is shining night, and the cloud, composing a joyful work, covers the young valley within. Hither, yonder, the teasing mountain winds roars and tumbles, shears through the fir trees, a shaft of light gleams and is lost. Slowly it hurries and wars, this chaos that trembles with joy. Young in appearance, yet strong, it celebrates loving conflict. Amidst the rocks, seizes and reels in its eternal bounds, for more bacchantically morning rises within. For there more endlessly doth the year grow, and the holy hours, the days, are more boldly marshalled and mixed. Yet the bird of thunderstorms knows the time, and between mountains high in the air he hovers and calls out that it's day. And now, deep down within, the little village awakens and, fearless, familiar with what is high, looks up from under the peaks. Divining grows, for already, like lightning, the ancient torrents fall, the ground's steam spit beneath them, and as they crash down, echo sounds round about, and the immeasurable workshop dispensing gifts, both by day and by night, is astir. Calmly, meanwhile, the silver heights gleam above, and the shining snow up there is full of roses already. And still higher up, above the light, dwells the poor and blissful God, gladdened by the play of holy beams. In silence he dwells alone, and bright his countenance appears. The etherical one seems inclined to grant life, to offer joy. Still with us, as often before, though knowing the right measure, knowing those who breathe, hesitant and sparing, the God sends well-apportioned fortune to the cities and houses, sends mild showers to open the land, brooding clouds, and then you, most dearly beloved breezes, and you, gentle springs, and with a slow hand he gladdens again those grown sad. When he renews the seasons, the creative one quickens and moves the hearts of aging men, works upon the depths and opens and brightens all as he loves to do. And now, once again, life begins. Once again, life begins. Grace is in flower, and as before, and present spirit comes. And a glad courage once more makes pinions beat and swell. Much I said to him, for whatever poets may ponder or sing, mostly it is addressed to the angels and him. Much I begged for on my country's behalf, lest unbidden one day the Spirit should suddenly seize upon us. And much for your sake too, who are troubled in our country, and for you, compatriots, to whom holy gratitude will bring back the fugitives with a smile. Meanwhile, the lake rocked me, and the oarsman sat calmly praising the voyage. Far over the lake's level there was one joyous motion among the sails, and now the city bursts and flares into view in the early morning light. And safely guided there from the shadowy Alps, the boat arrives, and now it rests in the harbor. Here the shore is warm and valleys open and welcome. Beautifully lit up by paths, they beckon me to green and glistening. Gardens lie there conjoined, and the gleaming bud is beginning, and birds' song invites the traveler. All seems familiar, even the casual greeting seems that of friends, and every face looks like a kinsman's face. And indeed, it's the land of your birth, the soil of your homeland. What you seek is near, and you'll find it in the end. And not for nothing, at the gate surrounded with music of wavelets stands the wandering man like a sun, looking at you and seeking names for you, most blessed Lindau. For this is one of the country's hospitable porters, inviting us to sally out from there into the distance that promises much, where the marvels are high up, where the godlike wild beast, the Rhine, blasts his reckless course into the plains and draws forth the jubilant valley out of the rocks to wander in there through shining mountain ranges to Como, or as the day proceeds down the open lake. Yet me, sanctified porters, still more you invite to go home, by flowering paths that are known to me, there to visit the country and the Neckar's beautiful valleys and the woods, the verdure of holy trees, where the oak loves to consort with quiet birches and beeches, and within mountains a place will kindly imprison me. There they welcome me. O voice of the town, my mother, it is you that strike, that stir up things I learned long ago, and yet they are still what they were. Still the sun and joy flower for you, my most dearly beloved, and almost more brightly meet your eyes than before. Truly, the old things are still the same. They drive, they thrive, and they ripen, but nothing that lives and love abandons faith. But the best of all, the find that lies under the rainbow of holy peace has been saved up for the young and old. I speak like a fool. Joy it is. But tomorrow and later, when we go out and look at the living field beneath the trees and blossom in the festive days of spring, I shall speak with you and hope with you at length about it. Much I have heard about the great Father, and have long kept silent about him, who up there in the heights refreshes wandering time, and reigns over the mountain ranges, who soon will vouchsafe us heavenly gifts, and will call for brighter song, and send many beautiful spirits. Oh, do not tarry, but come, you preservers, angels of the year, and you, angel of our house, come soon into all the veins of life, rejoicing them all at once. May the heavenly divide, ennoble, rejuvenate, so that nothing that's humanly good, not 1 hour of the day shall pass without those glad ones, and that joy experienced now when lovers are reunited shall be worthily consecrated as it is fitting for them. When we bless the meal, whom may I name? And when we rest from the day's exertions, tell me, how shall I offer thanks? Should I name the exalted one then? A God does not like what's unseemly. To grasp him, our joy is almost too small. Often we must be silent. There is a lack of holy names. Hearts beat high, and yet speech holds back. But there's a lyre that lends the right notes to every hour, and perhaps gives pleasure to heavenly ones who are now approaching. This make ready, and at once the care that troubled my joy is almost laid at rest. Cares of this kind, whether he likes it or not, a singer must bear in his soul, and often, but not those of a different kind. That's the poem Homecoming by Friedrich Hölderlin. As I told you, it's a long one, it's a difficult one, but it is a mostly inspiring one, and I actually hope that I will succeed in squeezing out some aspects that will help us to get a better and more profound understanding on the very capacity of art to shape the land so that it becomes a homeland, so that it becomes a place where humans can dwell, can live in peace, and mostly enjoy. For probably you realize that this poem is mostly about joy. Joy is a topic that from the very beginning until the very end consequently appears in the lines of the poet. So when you ask me why this poem, I will give you the following answers. I choose it because the poem Homecoming and what it actually is about, namely the process of homecoming, is all about nature, or in other words, cosmos. Artemis was speaking about cosmos in her introductory remarks. It is about poetry in special and art in general, and it is about home. It is about identity. It is about the land. And above all, it is about joy. So this, at the very moment, is nothing more than an assumption, and now it's up to me to prove it. How to do it? Sometimes when you deal with a complex poem, it is the easiest approach to take a look at formal aspects such as the architecture or the structure. And in the case of Hölderlin, this makes perfect sense because Hölderlin usually structures his poems very, very clearly, and this is the case for this poem as well. I try to illustrate it. You don't need to read the letters by now, it's almost impossible, but I just want to make visible that the poem is clearly structured in a kind of tripartite architecture. That means we have three pairs of two stanzas, and this can't be seen by now because Hamburger in his translation ignores the metric of the poem, but each stanza consists of 18 verses. So we have a lot of tripartite architecture within this poem. So we can say that there's a first third consisting of the stanzas 1 and 2, a medium third consisting of the stanzas 3 and 4, and a final third consisting of the stanzas 5 and 6. So what are they about? First of all, this structure, this architecture follows very well what I would like to call the mental or the poetical topography of the homecoming. The first two stanzas, most likely you noticed, focus or turn our attention towards the Alps, towards the mountains. The mountains are described in a very accurate way in the first two stanzas. Then the poet changes the direction and draws our attention to the lake that he actually is crossing. The lake, for those who are not that familiar with German geography, is Lake Constance on the very border between Switzerland, Austria, and Germany. And there in the middle part also the city is described where the ship will harbor. And the city is called Lindau, which is located in Germany. And then the third of the poem again changes the direction and offers a new focus. Now the author takes us to the land of his birth, as he calls it, the Neckar's beautiful valleys, a region in Germany called Swabia, Schwaben in German. And the experts know that indeed this is the place where Hölderlin was born, in a tiny village called Laufen at the shore of the river Neckar. And he also died at the edge on the shores of the river Neckar in Tübingen. So this is the topography, and for those who are familiar with the landscape, it is quite easy to reconstruct. The author comes from the Alps, he enters into the harbor of Lindau, and he's looking forward to the place where he's heading for, namely his homeland, the Neckar's beautiful valleys. And having mentioned this, we can add a further level of this three-parted architecture, namely the level that I would like to call the timeline of the poem. Because obviously the poem is written from the perspective of the poet who is on board of a boat crossing the lake and which is already about to enter into the harbor where the poet is about to offboard and enter into the city. So the middle part describes the present situation where the poet is currently staying, while the first part is a kind of retrospective, which draws our inner view to the Alps, to the past, the place where the author comes from, whereas the third part of the poem directs to the future because it talks about the places where the poet is longing to go to. So we also have this tripartite structure of time, which is in tune with the topography of the poem. Next to this, we definitely need to ask ourselves what might be the symbolic meaning of these places and what are, so to say, the different factors which need to be accumulated so that homecoming is about to take place. So another level can be added, and this level explains to us what the Alps do represent. Actually, they are a symbol or a representative for nature or life. Both concepts will fit. Whereas the middle part deals with poetry and art. This is a part in which the poet presents himself. This is where he is reflecting on his business, where he is reflecting on his homecoming, which is nothing but a different concept describing the very essence of art. Whereas the third part, which deals with the future, where the poet is heading to, the land of his mother, the land of his birth. This, however, is about what home or what a homeland really is, or it tries to offer a profound understanding of what it takes and what it means to be home. So I would like to first focus a bit more on that third part of the poem. That means on the topic of the homeland, of the land of the birth, which is about to become a real, profound, authentic place of homecoming, a place of identity. So let us take a look at the Neckar's beautiful valleys. This picture actually depicts the hometown of Hölderlin, Laufen, close to Heilbronn. That's why I choose it. Now we need to turn back to the poem and we jump into the third, the last part of this tripartite structure, which deals about the land of birth and which presents to us this land as a land expecting. So, what do we learn here about the region, the place, the land of birth the poet is heading for? It is the country of his mother. The first thing that he realizes there is the voice of the town. And the voice of the town, however, is the mother tongue of the culture, of the civilization he was born to, where he had been socialized. It is the region he calls home. I think it's quite evident that for a poet who deals with language and with voice, this is one crucial aspect which really is crucial for what is the very essence of home. It is the place where the mother tongue is spoken, where it is easy to understand each other because the people share the same language. And they do not only share the same language, they also share common habits, common culture. They share a place with tradition. There's a certain kind of familiarity which becomes obvious to the poet in the moment that he enters on land, that he enters into the town of Lindau. Everything is still what it was. The old things are still the same. That's what he actually realizes. But in the middle of this stanza, you see a very strong, very sharp but. But the best of all, the find that lies under the rainbow of holy peace has been saved up for the young and old. There is something Hölderlin calls the find, which is not revealed yet, something that is about to be unconcealed or revealed in the near future, but what is already expected, mostly by the poet, not of the people he meets there, because they are not unconscious of what is missing. But that what is missing is, in my understanding at least, the transformation of the land of birth into a place that the poet will honestly be able to call home. So the place where he's heading for is the land of his birth. It is the country of his birth, no doubt about it. But that doesn't mean, by any means, that it is home. To be home, something else needs to happen. That something else, called the find, is expected by the poet in the future. Therefore, he is talking about tomorrow. He is talking about the festive days of spring that will refresh the wandering time. A new time is about to begin. A new time which is marked by the very act, or let's say the very fact, that the land of birth has turned into a place that can probably be called home. So it is about a change of time. It is about the beginning of a new epoch that the poet is expecting from his return, from his homecoming to the land of his birth. And what will happen when the time will be refreshed? Heavenly gifts will be given by the great Father. Brighter songs will be heard. Beautiful spirits will appear. These are things we can hardly understand by now. Obviously, they refer to the very beginning of the poem, and we will come to this later again. But first, let's take a look to the sixth stanza, because she will tell us a bit more about these transformation that the poet expects from near future. What is home? What does it mean that the land of birth will turn into a real homeland. Home, and this seems to be evident to me, is a place where joy is. Home is a place where people will enjoy their life, where happiness dwells, where people are glad, and where they can rejoice. What needs to happen that joy will transform the land of birth into a homeland? Joy is where the heavenly or the exalted one, how Hölderlin calls the divine, divides and rejuvenates the world, rejuvenates time itself. What will be the symptoms for this rejuvenation? It will be the fact that the people who live in that country know again how to cherish and how to honor the divine. The divine or the heavenly divides in ceremonies like bless and thanksgiving. When we bless the meal, who may I name? And when we rest from the day's exertions, tell me, how shall I offer the thanks? Should I name the exalted one? The poet is not sure whether he may do this or not, and he tells us about the lack of holy names, and he laments that the speech holds back these names. So what poetry in general, in particular, and art in general needs to do is to overcome this lack of names, this lack of ceremony. The very challenge for art and its very essence in the understanding of our poet will be nothing else but finding new forms of expression of the divine, of the exalted one, so that it can shape and mold the land of birth in order to transform it into a place called home, a place where people can live in joy, where they can share their habits, and where they are well reconnected with their very home, which actually is not the place of their birth, but nature. Before we turn to nature, let me conclude or resume the most important points that we already worked out. What is home? Home is where there is a common language to address and witness the heavenly. Home is where the heavenly will be named and celebrated. Home is where the names and celebrations in honor of the heavenly spread common joy among the humans. Now, in order to understand what the poet means by these assumptions, we have to focus on the concept of heavenly, the heavenly ones, and we need to understand what actually is meant by these words. Therefore, I have to draw our attention back to the first two stanzas, to the first part of our tripartite architecture that brings us to the Alps as a symbol for nature in general. So what does the poet tell us about the Alps, about nature? It is quite fascinating to read again the first two lines of the poem. Still in the Alps, it is shining night, and the cloud, composing a joyful work, covers the young valley within. What strikes me most is that the word joyful appears in the second line, and shortly after again, therefore I took the orange color, So joy is omnipresent from the very beginning on. Joy is not only the quality of the atmosphere of a place called home in the country of our birth. No, joy is the quality of nature, of our real home as well. And not only this, what actually happens in nature is composition takes place. Now it is an advantage to know the original German version of the poem, because where Hamburger translated by composing, in the German original, a verb appears that is called dichten. Poetry is Dichtung, and dichten is a verb referring to poetry. You can't translate that to English, it's impossible, but it is about poetry from the first line on. It is about what a poet actually does, composing. And this is what is taking place in nature itself, but not in a technological way, but the way how nature does its composing work is nothing else but growth. The word grow or growth appears 2 times in this first stanza of the poetry. And this is not by chance, because we all know growing is the way that life is generated. It is the way in which life appears, shows up in the world. So nature obviously is the reign, is the kingdom of growth, is a place where natural growth takes place. And this is what poetry actually needs to translate into words, what art needs to translate into the several different kinds of artwork. It is a kind of reproducing the natural composing process of nature itself. And now something quite fascinating is described in this first stanza, namely nature is described as an immeasurable workshop. Everything is in motion, everything is in movement. There's a lot of dynamics going on. There's a lot of contradictory movement even. It is something that the poet calls a how to explain it, to pronounce it in English, mechanically processes. So this refers to the Dionysian aspect of life, and the Dionysian in the ancient Greek mythology has always been closely connected with chaos. And chaos is exactly what is happening here. We have these strange, almost paradoxical contradictions, such as loving conflict. Slowly it hurries. The night is shining. In this immeasurable workshop of nature, there are strange things going on. There is a kind of, let's say, it feels like a kind of alchemistry workshop where time itself is molded and rejuvenated. And this is exactly what he's talking about. Everything seems to be young here. And the time more endlessly shows up. The holy hours, the day, the year, everything is mixed in a more bold way. So time is in a constant process of generation within that immeasurable workshop of nature. Here, the river of time, the flow of time, the stream of time, this linear concept of time is generated, which somehow like a river, like a creek, streams out of the mountains, out of the wild, out of the Alps, into the lake where the poet in his boat produces poetry. It's quite amazing. So that's one aspect of nature, but there's another one. And the other one is what the poet describes in the second stanza. Here, he lifts his eyes and his spirit to, let's put it like this, to the realm, to the sphere above, to the bright light above the peaks, where nothing but bright light dwells, where the etherical one dwells. the blissful and pure God who is gladdened by the play of holy beams. This is a kind of remote space, a space where the high God dwells alone. But this high God, he is not only absent or he is not only remote, he is also generously giving and granting and sending his gifts of life. The etherical one seems inclined to grant life. So he sends mild showers, he gladdens, he renews, he quickens and moves, he opens. This remote God is very, very active, obviously, and in a very generous way. And by doing so, and this is very important, he is keeping the right measure. Everything he sends is well apportioned. He sends well apportioned fortune to the cities and houses. Everything is well balanced. Everything is well digestible for the humans. This mighty God who dwells up there beyond the highest peaks of the mountains in a sphere of pure life, he is the one who guarantees, let's say, the order, the harmony, the equilibrium, the right measure that makes life possible. It is a kind of counterbalance to this Dionysian dynamics which actually take place in the valleys. But above, there's order, there's eternity, there is something constant, something that persists. And that is an amazing insight of Hölderlin when he tells us about nature. Nature is not only the divine source of life. Nature is a place where two different concepts of time, I would even say two different realities of time, in a most fascinating, almost paradoxical Dionysian way are merged. The linear time, remember, the river flowing out of the Alps into the plains, and the cyclic times of the divine sphere, of the cosmic entities such as the sun and the moon who move in constant circles and through this give order, harmony, regularity to human life. Both are different aspects of nature who are interwoven in life itself. Life itself combines chaos and order. And only because of that, time can always be rejuvenated in the very immeasurable workshop of nature, of the wilderness itself. And by rejuvenating time, new beginnings, we would nowadays probably speak of disruptions, may occur in the plains, in the country where humans dwell and where they are desperately looking to make themselves a home. As nature and time always rejuvenates itself through this Dionysian dynamics, which the poet puts into words, life always generously grants humans joy and everything else required to make themselves a home on earth. And this rejuvenating of life and time is an artistic or poetic process in itself, which is performed by nature and which needs, and this is what it is all about, which needs to be translated through art and poetry into a language, into a human language that allows the humans to make the place of their birth or wherever they dwell a real place that may be called home. It is all about translation. Translation is a proper word in our context because the poet in his middle stanzas describes a translation, given that we here the original Latin meaning of the word translation, translatio, bringing from one latio side to the other. It is crossing, in other words, what the poet is talking about. And by doing this, the poet opens the space of poetry itself. Now we are in the here and the now. Now we are in the present moment. And of course, this is the right occasion to reveal the own identity. For suddenly, in the first line of stanza 3, the poet presents himself by saying, much I said to him. He, of course, is the etherical one, the highest God he was talking about in the first two stanzas. And of course, he discovers or he reveals his own identity when saying that poets may ponder or think, whatever they do, it is mostly addressed to the etherical one, to the God, to the angels, and also to the spirit. Obviously, in his understanding, the poet or the artist needs to be concerned about this dimension which needs to be addressed and which needs to be translated to artwork in order to transform the country so that it becomes home. So the poet actually confesses that he bothers for his countrymen and for the country he is heading for. It is not that easy that he comes back from the mountains, enters into Lindau, and is at a place of joy, fun, and happiness. No, he is troubled, and not only he is troubled, those that he will meet there and those with whom he will be reunited will be troubled concerning their country as well. And perhaps this is a kind of mindset that we can easily refer to our current time, because I suppose that most of us are troubled concerning our country and troubled concerning the question whether the country they are living in will in future still be a place they may call home. As for Hölderlin, our artist, however, the preconditions are not that bad, because he realizes that in the city he is actually entering, or in the harbor that his boat is about to enter, there is a kind of receptivity. It is a place that is ready to invite the travelers, a welcoming place, an open place, a place where he will not face a lot of resistance, but where he can be sure that people will listen to him. And that's why he can honestly say that he senses familiarity. And this goes on in the fourth and last stanza that we will have to look to, because again, the author, the artist, tells us that he realizes that now he is located at the edge of his homeland, in the double meaning of the word. He is at the edge of the country where he was born, and he is also at the edge of the transformation of that country to a place that can be called home. But, however, it is not home yet. What you seek is near, and you will find it in the end, but the end has not come so far. That means the find we were talking about is still missing. So the poet, the artist, needs to do his business, needs to do his job. He needs to realize, or how to put it, to generate art that translate the truth of nature, the truth of time that the poet experienced in the past when dwelling in the arms into works of art. And to do so, he needs to remember. Putting it to Greek, he needs to practice memory, mnemosyne. And this is why in his thoughts he wanders again to the marvelous places, to the mountain ranges where the marvels are. And this is because he is still in search for the proper words, the proper names that he needs in order to comprise, to compose the divine nature he experienced in a way that his artwork, that his language gains the capacity to shape and mold the land so that it becomes a place to be called home, the country and the Neckar's beautiful valleys. So again, let me conclude what we learn about art and poetry. Art, understood properly when we follow Hölderlin, is translation, translatio. It has the duty to translate the very essence of always rejuvenating nature into artwork. That means art captures the restless, immeasurably nature by at least temporary, stable compositions. Remember, in nature, we have this two-fold structure. We have, on the one hand, the circular time, which constantly performs order by eternal return. And on the other hand, we have the Dionysian time. The cyclic time you can call the Apollonian time. On the other hand, we have the Dionysian time, which constantly flows. So what art is able to perform is an overlapping of Apollonian time and Dionysian time. That means within the constant current flow of time, something temporarily stable, a piece of art, a composition of music, a poem, or whatsoever, a happening can be established so that the eternal, let's say, the sphere of eternal sense of eternity can somehow drop into the stream of time and open a gate towards the everlasting, eternal, divine sphere that is required to allow humans to live on the surface of Mother Earth as a place they can call home, because people need something that makes sense and that helps them to identify with. So what art actually performs is the merging of the cyclic Apollonian time and the linear Dionysian time. Doing so, art translates our very home, which is nature, into culture. And this process is exactly what Hölderlin calls homecoming. And the major part of homecoming is memory, is remembering nature through fixing the ever-changing by the timeless. This is my formula to what memory as a crucial factor of art can realize. And to do so, of course, the 9 daughters of memory of Mnemosyne are required. The Muses, which appear in our poem under the chiffre of the angels. We know from a former draft of Hölderlin's poem that where in his later version angels written, gods were standing. And I'm pretty sure, because we know it from other poetry of Hölderlin, that he was thinking of the Muses when using these words, and in a later version transferring it to angels. So this is what we can learn about art and poetry from Hölderlin's poem Homecoming. What are our learnings of all that we've heard? Homecoming in the 21st century. The land of birth will not be transformed into home through propaganda, power, and politics, but rather through reconnecting with the very home of humans, that is, with nature. The land of birth will not be transformed into home through advanced technology and economy, but rather through the humble work of art and poetry. The land of birth will not be transformed into home through establishing law and order, but rather through remembering the cosmic principles of life. The land of birth will not be transformed into home through spreading fear and terror, but rather through cultivating joy and friendship. Let me conclude with a quote by another famous poet who I appreciate very much. I talk about, oh, no, sorry, one more chart. What will happen if poetry and art do not succeed to transform the land of birth into home? Well, without art, without Mnemosyne and the Muses, there is serious danger. The land of birth might turn into wasted landscapes where joyless people suffer from cultural and spiritual decline. So, what needs to be done? The poet, the author I was talking about, D.H. Lawrence, put it like this: vitally, the human race is dying. It is like a great uprooted tree with its roots in the air. We must plant ourselves again in the universe. We must plant ourselves again in the universe. Nothing more to say. Thank you very much for your patience and your attention.
Thank you so much, Christoph, for this in-depth exploration into the necessity to root ourselves into nature. And I think there are a lot of questions from the audience, and I think Liz is going to monitor that, and I have to quiet my dog. Just a second. Otto.
Okay, I can read one of the questions by Iris. Hi, Iris, nice to meet you. What is the title of Friedrich Hölderlin's poem in German? It is Heimkunft. Heimkunft. I think homecoming is quite almost literal translation. Any further comments, questions, critics, whatever you feel you would like to mention, you are very welcome to do so.
Alrighty. Well, if anybody who's watching this now or later has questions for Christoph, Christoph, what's the best way that they can reach you?
Oh, I think the easiest way is by good old-fashioned email. And if you want to write me an email, it's quite simple. It is info at then my name, Christoph Quarch, in one word only, .de. And if you Google me, you will easily find my webpage, and there are also all the contact details required to get in touch with you. You can also find me on LinkedIn and on Signal, but unfortunately on other social media, I am not present anymore.
No worries about that. And thank you to everyone who's joined us today. Christoph and Artemis, if you can stay on the line once we hang up. If you have any questions, feel free to email Christoph directly or the art gallery. And our next set of events is going to be on this Sunday here at Goucher College in the Athenaeum right outside of Silber for an art history lecture about art, land, and memory. Thank you.